Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Let's continue with our series. In the last episode, we have worked on add to cart functionality of the user service, and you have seen how we have added all the cart items by communicating with the product service, right? And there are a couple of things still we need to do where we can edit and delete cart items. But before that, we need to deploy this whole user service and the product service in the cloud as well as, right? So product service, there is no any issue because the product service database is pointed to our MongoDB that is already running on the MongoDB Atlas, right? And but for user service, we are pointing our database to our local database, right? Which is running in our local computer. So in that case, we can deploy this whole service, but our service will not be able to reach out to our local computer. So let's try to add the remote DB support in terms of like we are going to set up some kind of database in our AWS account, right? So with the help of that, so at least our user service can have accessibility of the database. What are the database supports are available in AWS? AWS is supporting all the major databases, right? So in our case, we are going to use the PostgreSQL. So by selecting with PostgreSQL, you have two choices. In AWS, we have a managed RDS, right? And another is you can go with a self-managed RDS, right? So let's discuss one by one. So what is managed RDS? Managed RDS is some kind of instance. You can directly create a kind of RDS instance and you can select your suitable database. And AWS is going to be take care of all these settings in terms of the operational excellence, whatever exactly this required, the security and performance efficiency, right? So all these things, it will going to be taken care by AWS. You don't need to do anything in terms of once you created the RDS instance, then monitoring, centralized backup, logging, and event management, security, and the performance in terms of if you need to scale your database, then it will going to take care automatically, right? But there's a thing. So it will be cost a little bit apart from the standard cost, whatever exactly they have assigned for the specific tier, right? Because it depends on all these things they are doing for you, right? You no need to put your hands to configure everything, right? So this is how managed RDS is working, right? No worries. So we are going to implement both the things, right? The self-managed RDS, you need to do everything in yourself, right? So you need to create your security group, you need to expose the whole instance, and you need to install your database, you need to prepare your backup plan, right? But in this case, you only need to pay the whatever the EC2 instance running, all right, specific hours, that is you need to pay. And additionally, if you are adding some extra resources for monitoring, for logging, or whatever exactly it's required as per your part of the plan, that is you are going to pay, right? So if you can do it in the self-managed way, then maybe you can pay less, right? So that is the thing. Difference between managed RDS and self-managed RDS. You have everything, whatever exactly needed for the database, AWS is going to take care for you. But here, you need to think about it, everything from yourself, right? So let's just try to implement one by one. So we are going to create the managed RDS first, then we are going to create our self-managed RDS also, right? And this is our RDS dashboard. So to find out this dashboard, you can just simply search for RDS here, RDS, and then RDS service will pop up right here. If you have already used, then it will show up you here. And if you have not used at all, then go to the service, right? Click on all the service, then go to the our section, right? Here, you can find it out from here, right? Now let's go ahead and create the database. Click on the create database. Here we are creating the database, right? To create the database, select the standard create. Do not go with the easy create because in the easy create, you will not get much more configuration stuff, right? So standard create is perfectly fine for us. And in our case, we can select any database, but PostgreSQL we are using for our user service. So make sure you are selecting the PostgreSQL from here, right? And another thing is like you can select the PostgreSQL version, right? By default, 14.6 R1, this is correct, this is good, right? And for the template, make sure you are selecting the pre-tier template. If you go to the production and the dev test, definitely it's going to cost a little bit more. Because the free tier, maybe you can if you have not utilized your free tier hours, then you will get it for free, okay? But just for kind of like a disclaimer, even if you select the free tier also, still you need to pay a little bit money because of some other resources it's going to be used, right? So make sure bare minimum like you have set up your the billing and all this stuff correctly, okay? So now go with here the DB instance identifier. We can just put identifier, any identifier it can be possible, but in our case, as an example, user service, right? And master username, you can just put PostgreSQL. That it's fine. Whatever the database master username, you can put it right here. In our case, what we are going to do, we are going to use our user service, or maybe user underscore service, right? You cannot put hyphen here because it's not going to be accept here. In the password, you can click on the auto generate password also, but in our case, we are going to put the same just like this, has 2023, and confirm master password also something like this, has 2023, right? Instance configuration, we need to select one EC2 machine, right? Because the database stuff, whatever the database we have selected, that is going to be run underneath of one EC2 machine, right? So in our case, we can select any kind of machine, but as you can see here, T2 micro is not available, right? Because we have selected the PostgreSQL. If you select the MySQL, maybe it will be available. Here you can come and you can see it is available, right? So, but it's fine. We are going with the PostgreSQL, and here T3 micro. This is fine. And storage is we are not going to tweak it. Like 20 GB, it's fair enough, right? Connectivity, we are going to leave it as it is by default, because anyway we are going to cover one episode based on like how we can set up our private database, and where our service is going to be talked internally with the help of some kind of the private security group, and how we can access this private database with the help of backend machine for development purpose. All right, that is we are going to cover in whole episode, right? So let's go with the current settings. Like we are not going to connect with the EC2 compute resources. That's fine. And IPv4, this is exactly needed because we're going to access this database from the publicly and from outside. And by virtual private cloud, like VPC, we are going to select the default one, right? And subnet group also we are selecting default. That's perfectly fine. And here is the thing, like, if you can make your this RDS instance private, then make sure like you are selecting no. And if you're making this private instance, like this specific database instance public, then make sure select a yes, because in our case we are not going to set up everything right now. And just go with yes. This is public access, perfectly fine. VPC security group firewall, SUS existing, you can select the existing also. And or otherwise you can just create a kind of new security group. Let's go with a new security group and put a kind of name that is called RDS user service. That is always recommended. You always use a specific security group for specific resources, right? So accidentally you are not exposing your existing permissions to some kind of new service, all right? And availability zone, we are not preferring anything, right? That's perfectly fine. We're not creating any proxy. That is also fine. And the certificate, that's optional exactly. Just leave it as it is, right? And database authentication password, that is where we're going to do it, all right? It's already we have mentioned right here somewhere. Yeah, this one, right? Just make sure like you are keeping correctly that the username and password, right? Monitoring, you can keep it turned on or you can keep it turned off also. But this feature exactly, it's provided by AWS, that what is the status of your database and how exactly it's getting interacted and what are the logs and everything you can just monitor from here, all right? Which is you need to set up for your customization, like custom RDS, you need to do it manually, right? And additional settings, like you can keep the encryption and all. But in our case, we are not going to set up everything. Like this is not exactly it's necessary for a while. And here is a kind of estimation monthly cost. You can find it out from here, right? RDS pre-tier also available for the 12 months, all right? And if you have already utilized all these things, then you need to pay while you are spinning up this server, all right? And you can see like Amazon RDS single AZ, it's DB T2 micro and T3 micro, and DB T4Z micro instances are it's pre-tier. It's like covering the free tier of 750 hours, right? That's perfectly fine. So let's click on create database. So it will create your database. Cool. So now it's gonna take a little bit time, and till that time, just I'm gonna pause for this video, and I'll come back once this is created. Perfect. So finally our database is created, right? Let's go ahead and explore it, what exactly it's happened right here, okay? If you click on the user service, this database identifier, you can see a whole bunch of information regarding this database. This is our connectivity and security, where this is our endpoint where we are going to connect to this database, right? Let's copy this one. And this is the network information. This is the security group. Already we have added a kind of new security group for this database instance, right? And in the monitoring section, you can see like CPU utilization, database connectivity, and memory information. All these things are here. In the configuration section, you can get it, what kind of the instance class we have been used right here, and what are the database engine version, that is you can see, and a whole bunch of information you can get it from here. It's pretty explanatory, right? So let's go ahead and connect this database, right? Here in the table plus, I'm gonna add a new connection and select the PostgreSQL, click on the create. And here, let's put this user service or RDS, right? And here in the host and the socket, you can just put the endpoint, right? Make sure there are no spaces on the in the front of this endpoint and back of this endpoint as well as, right? And the port number, this is the default port number. Let's provide it 5432, and username, that is we can find it from here in the availability section. This is our master username, right? And put the master username and password. We are going to put the same, but right after we have appended hash to 023, right? And database name, initially we have not added any database, so by default database for PostgreSQL, it is going to be Postgres, and just click on the test connection. You can see this is green. Also, our connection is succeeded. All right, click on the save. And now this is our connection. Click on that connection, then you can see a whole bunch of informations in terms of like the functions, tables, but we don't have any tables, right? And if you click on the database, then you can see these already databases are available, right? So this same exact configuration we are going to use from our service, right? So let's go ahead, and again we are going to use this endpoint. Copy this from here and go to our service. Here where we are going to put it the connection URL, because there are two places where it's being used, right? One is for our data migration, another is from our data access in terms of the application going to access the database, right? There are two places it's being used. So first we are going to use from the migration stuff, like where migrations are happening, database.json. So here we are going to put this one that is called this one. Host will be user will be, let's create a database that's called user, right? That is we are going to create. So I'm going to close this one and go to table plus. Here create a database that's called new, that's called user service, right? Exact name, user service. Yes, perfect. Encoding, we are not using any kind of encoding, that's fine. User service is created. Okay, so let's open this user service. Yeah, there's nothing else. It's empty database, right? Now let's go here in the host. We are going to put like that specific endpoint, and password will be user service. Username will be user service, and password will be user service hash 2023. So technically these are the things exactly it's going to be pull up from our Git CI/CD, and the rest of all from the application level we are going to use our AWS Secret Manager. From there we are going to utilize that one. Okay, but now I think these are perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and implement the same thing for our application configuration as well as. Here in the database client, we are going to use the same user service, and host will be this one, and user service. Password will be user service hash 2023. Okay, cool. So everything is done right now. So what we need to do, we need to speed up our server and need to run our migrations, right? Is there any installations are pending? Let's check it out. Yarn. Okay. No, it's nothing. Now we need to run our migration. How we are running the migration? This is already available in the make file, right? And we need to simply run this migrate, right? So make migrate. Cool. Can you see like all the migrations are done, right? So let's go ahead and table plus. Click on table plus, and if you refresh the whole database, then you can see a whole bunch of tables. Cool. Now let's go ahead and now here in the application, let's try to spin up the server. Make server. All right, so our server is running. Let's go to Postman and try to perform the sign up operation, right? So here in the sign up, this user URL, this is our localhost. That's perfectly fine. Click on the send. Now you can see it is sign up is happening, right? And the same thing we're going to do the login as well as. Yeah, login is also happening. If you go to Table Plus, now you should have to see that the user, right? Click on the users. Can you see? This is happening, right? Right, so now we have done our manage RDS part, right? So right now let's go ahead and set up like self-managed RDS. Then once this is done, then we are going to deploy our application. In order to create this self-managed RDS, we need to do a couple of steps. First of all, we need to create our EC2 machine and we need to set up our PostgreSQL, expose the specific endpoint or specific port, and listening to all the addresses. So a lot of things we need to do. So let's do one by one these things in order to achieve the self-managed RDS, right? First of all, let's go to AWS account and click on the EC2. Then you can get this dashboard, right? Click on the launch instance. And here I'm gonna put my RDS instance name as an example, user service RDS. Self-managed, right? And then we can select any of the operating system. This time we are going to set up with Ubuntu, right? And you can select any of the AMI from here. So we are happy with the latest version of the Ubuntu server, this one. It's already pre-tier available. So let's go with this. And architecture is fine. And instance type here, yeah, Nano definitely it's not gonna work. So let's go with this one, right? Pre-tier, it's pre-tier available. That's cool. Then key pair, I have already a couple of key pairs, but I'm not going to use that one. So if you are moving forward with this step in the very first time, then maybe you can see like how the key pair is getting created. So click on the create new key pair and put a name for you like user RDS managed, right? Then key pair will be RSA. You can put any kind of the encryption. So by default encryption, I'm gonna keep it. Okay, and click on the key pair, create key pair. In the network settings, we need to provide a couple of things that is called VPC. That is you can select the default one, and if you don't wanna use the default one, go ahead in the VPC section and create a new VPC. Then refresh right here, then you will get the newly created VPC here. So I'm gonna assign it my default one. Okay, and subnet, there's no preference. Okay, I'm happy with the default subnet, right? You can select any one of the subnets from here, and auto assign IP, public IP enable. Yeah, it has to be enabled. And next, firewall security group. Here we are not going to use the existing one, as I said, like for certain resources, as an example, for RDS, for or accessing bucket or such a kind of like specific resources, it will be best to go with the create a new security group, so accidentally you are not exposing other resources permission to this specific resource, right? That is the exactly difference. If you select existing security group which is exactly dedicated for RDS, then you can go ahead. But if you assigning something else, like that specific security group is created for accessing maybe S3 bucket or something else, then if you're providing here, that's not a kind of good choice at all. So let's go ahead and create a new security group. All right, then we need to put a kind of security group name that is called user service self managed, right? And here description that doesn't require, right? It's up to you. You can provide it. In the inbound security group rules, we have a default one that is called SSH that is needed to access this EC2 machine. One more security group rule we need to provide it. Click on the add security group rule. That is called our PostgreSQL, right? This one. And TCP, this is the port range exactly. And custom type, we are providing from anywhere, right? So anywhere with this specific PostgreSQL can access this machine. with the help of the user credential in terms of user ID, password, or whatever, right? So this is the setting exactly we need to do for our security groups, right? And storage, it is fine, 8 GB. We're happy with the 8 GB. And advanced set details, that is, we can add like on the time of the created this instance, we can run a couple of commands, just like update the instance, install that specific things. But this is only we are doing for only one time. Now we can just click hit the launch instance button, right? All right, so this is our instance. Okay, so till that instance is completely done, right now it is initializing this data check. So till that time we can just place our file or the key file in the right place, so at least we can conveniently use that specific file. All right, let's go ahead to the download directory. Here, this is our file, right? I'm gonna copy this file from here, and I'm gonna put in my home directory here, just to paste this file. Right, so this is our file. Now go ahead in the terminal window and let's check it out which directory I am. This is my present working directory. Why we are going to do like chmod 400, so it is giving only the read permission of this file, so by revoking rest of all permissions. So accidentally you while you were replacing or while you were overriding this file, so it should not be replaced or override, right? So let's try to do that. Okay, cool. Now let's go to this instance here, click on refresh. Now it is done. So click here in this instance here, in the instance ID, and now you can see this is the exact details. All right, we have selected Ubuntu, right? So this is our version, right? And in the networking, we have this is our public DNS, right, which is going to be needed to connect our database, and the rest of all is fine, right? Now let's go ahead. Click on the connect, right? So already we did this step, right? And second step we need to do like this one, right? We need to connect this machine from our terminal. Go to terminal and paste this specific command, which is we have copied from there, and press enter. Right? It is asking me like whether you can keep this fingerprint, right? Whatever. Are you sure to continue with this specific fingerprint, or yes or no? So I'm gonna put yes. Yeah. Now it is connected. Now we are connected to our machine. First of all, we need to update all the packages of this specific operating system. Let's do that. All right, so our operating system is updated now. All right, all the packages are updated. So let's try to install our PostgreSQL. So in order to install the PostgreSQL, 2 packages we need to install. Let's install those packages quickly. Yes. All right, so our PostgreSQL is installed correctly, right? Let's try to check whether PostgreSQL is running or not correctly. So right, so now you can see it is active, right? It's running correctly. On the time of the installation of the PostgreSQL already created a kind of default user for us, right? Let's try to utilize that user so we can create a kind of a rule for our user service, which is going to be used in our application in order to perform all the database operations, right? Let's try to do that. Perfect. So now we are logging with the Postgres user, right? Let's try to get into our PostgreSQL, right? How we can do that? So simply type PSQL. Now we are inside the PSQL, right? Now let's try to alter either Postgres password. Okay. Perfect. So we have set our password for our Postgres user, right? Now our default user also saved, right? So now let's create a kind of a rule for our database. Let's quickly do that. Right, now our user service rule is created. You can check it out, the rule, just like by giving /du. You can see there are two rules are available, right? One is the Postgres, another is like user service. So let's try to give the access of the like login capability to our user service, right? So in that case, again, we are going to give the same way we are altering the stuff, the same way we can do that thing, right? Right, so we give the login access to our user service. Now let's provide a kind of password also just for our user service. So in that case, we are going to do alter. Don't forget to put like the semicolon right after that specific statement, right? Now go ahead and give a little bit capability to this specific user service, so at least it can create the DB as well. Right, so our user services right now, it's ready for performing the operations, right? So what we did here, first of all, we have added the password for our Postgres, the default user, right? And then we have created one rule that is called user service, and we have altered the rule and giving the capability of login, and then we have added the password for that specific user role, right? This is our password, and finally we gave to the this specific user service user to create a DB capability as well. As right now, once this specific user will be going to be login, then it can create the database as well. So now what we are going to do, we are going to keep all this data in a kind of snippet or somewhere, so at least we are not going to forget it. Maybe here, let's try to put right here. Right, cool. Let's check it out whether our user is perfectly, it is there or not, the U. Now you can see our user service has a login capability, and plus it has the create DB rule also, right? So this capability is perfectly fine, and you can go ahead and assign whatever the capabilities it's needed, so you can provide it accordingly. And if you go to the PostgreSQL documentation, then you can find it out much more useful information to assign it right here. Right, okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do, this part is totally done. So now we have created our rule, we gave all the necessary permissions, and we set the password for default user along with the newly created user as well, right? So now just to try to exit from here. So in that case, right, Control D you can press, right? Then it will go out from here. Okay, and again just to exit this one also as well, as because we don't want to use the Postgres anymore. So what we need to do right now, our PostgreSQL, though it is installed in this EC2 machine, it is not accessible from outside world, right? Because why? It is only going to be listened to the localhost only. So what we need to do, we need to edit that specific permission from the localhost to all the hosts, right? So at least anyone who is exactly trying to access this machine, then it can be accessible the PostgreSQL. So that is we need to do. So for that thing, what we need to do, let's go to a kind of file path. Sudo BIM. I'm gonna use the BIM editor, so you can use any editor you like. And in that case, go to etc and Postgres, right? Then which version we have used, we are using latest one. Let's try to, if you're gonna put one, then it will automatically come like which version exactly it's been installed. Then go to the main directory, then go to PostgreSQL conf, right? So this is the file exactly I'm looking for, right? Let's scroll down a little bit. So here, this is the line exactly, the listen addresses, right? So right now you can see here it is listening to localhost only, right? So press I for insert the things, and let's delete this line, this comment exactly, and remove this localhost and put star for it will listen from everywhere, right? It says like what IP addresses it's listen on, right? Now in order to save this file, just press escape and shift colon, right? Now it is coming to like the command mode, and then you can just put WQ right and quit, right? Now again you can see like the changes is reflected here, right? Now again we are going to colon, shift colon, then this time QA, we are not going to save anything, right? Now our PostgreSQL will accept any IP address, right? Earlier it was only accept the localhost, right? That is we did. So now one more thing we need to do a little bit more configuration in another file. That is we need to tell specifically like if someone try to connect with the specific user ID and password, right? Make sure you are accepting the connection. So that is we need to tell, right? So how we can do that? The same way we need to do sudo BIM etc PostgreSQL and foreign main, but this time we are going to edit a different file that is called pz sba conf, this one, right? Let's go bottom of the file. So here in the bottom of the file, just to try to add one more line that is called again host all, and here we are putting like anywhere, right? 0.0.0.0, the same way we did for our the security group we are doing, the same way we need to do right here as well, as 0, right? And make sure there are 4 times 0, 0.0.0.0/0, right? And here we can put it like MD5. Thank you. Now save the file again, WQ, right? Make sure this changes, whatever changes we did, exactly it is taken place, right? Now you can see it's taken place, right? Now again colon, shift colon, and now this time QA, right? Now all these changes are done. We need to restart our PostgreSQL, so at least it can accept all these changes, right? So in that case, sudo systemctl restart PostgreSQL. Yeah, it's restarted. Now let's check the status service. So now all the configurations are done. Now this is the time where we are going to connect this database instance with our table plus, the way we did for our managed RDS, right? Let's go ahead here in the instance, right? And copy this public DNS from here, copy, and go to table plus, right? I'm gonna close this one and click here in this plus button again, and again PostgreSQL, click on create. And this time I'm gonna put the same thing like the way we have added right here in the name, right? User service RDS. This time also I'm gonna put user RDS self-managed, right? Here in the host socket, here we are putting the public DNS name, right? And port will be the same, 5432, and username will be our user service. Password will be our user service. Has to 023, and database name will be Postgres, right? Click on test. Now you can see it is connected, right? Click on the save. Now if you go here, double click, then it should have to be connected. Cool. So now there are no any kind of tables or nothing, right? Let's go ahead and create a database. Click on the new, then click on user service, and we don't want any encoding, the way we did for our managed RDS as well as. Okay, now it is done, right? This is our user service. Now you can see it's connected, right? Let's go ahead and run the migrations from our application. In the user service, let's go ahead here in the database client. We are going to keep this one outside at least, so we can reutilize the same for deployment. Rest of all will be same, only this one going to be changed, right? So let's try to copy this one, public IPv for DNS, this one again, add it here, right? And in the migration also we need to do in the database session. Here also we need to do the same, add it, right? Now our application is ready with the configurations, right? The same way, same thing, same user ID, password, database also, it's cool. Now let's try to run the migration. Make migrate. Can you see it is running correctly, right? Now if you go to table plus, and again if you refresh this data, then you can see our migration is ran correctly, right? Perfect. So now you can see our tables are created, right? All the migrations are taken place, right? This is our user table. Now let's go to application here, and we're going to run the application. Right, so our application is running correctly. Now if you go here in the Postman, click right here and click on the sign up, you can see our user is created, right? And the login also going to be do the same way. Yeah, it's cool. It's working, right? So this is the time where we are going to deploy our application. So right before deploy the application, make sure our product service is deployed correctly. So let's try to deploy the product service, right? So cdk deploy purpose. Perfect. So now our product service is deployed correctly. Copy this URL because this URL is going to be needed, right? And if you are not getting this URL, make sure you go to this AWS account and click on the API gateway. Then you can find it out like this product API gateway, right? And click on the stages and click on the prod. So here you can find this URL from here, right? So this URL is going to be needed in order to access our products from where we are. While we are going to create our cart, then we need to access this URL, right? Here in the user service, you can see inside the message queue, there's a file that is called index.ts. This URL, it's a kind of local URL, right? So if you're gonna deploy this application in the cloud, then it will not going to be access this stuff, right? So let's try to use this the product service URL, and right after this, right? Right after this, go here, right? This is correctly fine. Just copy this one, and after that, right after this, make sure you are using this endpoint that is called products queue, and this one, right? Now cool. Now our product service URL is ready. So at any point, if you are going to call this pull data function, then certainly it will be automatically going to be reached to this specific function, right? Let's try to save it. And another thing we need to do, recently I have just figured out, like with the serverless framework, there's a kind of issue with the bcrypt, right? Bcrypt library. So make sure we are removing this bcrypt library from our package, right? Yarn remove bcrypt, right? And use the bcrypt.js. So yarn add bcrypt.js, right? And the same thing we need to do like for our types directory as well as. So if you go to package.json, here it is installed the types as well as. So make sure you remove this one as well as. Remove this one, right? This is gone. And for bcrypt.js, right? This one we need to install the types version as well as. Yarn add that div. Yes, we have installed correctly. So our dependency bcrypt.js is installed, and our types version also it's been installed. Now go to the password, right? Now you can see it is giving error. So instead of this bcrypt, put bcrypt.js, and this is, you can keep it accordingly. That's fine. So you no need to rename this bcrypt.js at all. So bcrypt.js we are importing as a kind of bcrypt. Cool. Now this is the time where we are going to deploy our application, right? Now our application database is pointed to this self-managed RDS, right? So here, yarn deploy. Cool. So our application is deployed correctly. Let's grab this specific URL from here, right? This is the URL we are going to use for our all the functions. As you can see here, it's the endpoints and same base URL is being used, right? So let's try to sign up from here. We're going to use a click on this one just to replace this URL, user URL. Right, so make sure the URL is correct. Yes, URL is correct. Cool. Now save. Now try to log in. Yeah, can you see it is giving the response, right? The response is coming, and if we are signing up with some different email ID, right? So just to try to do that. Yeah. It is created right now. I don't know why exactly it is giving this kind of response as a kind of text or something, but anyway, we can figure out like why exactly it is giving this kind of response. So, but it is giving the proper response, right? If you're gonna use the same credential right here as well as, you can see it is giving the response. Cool. So overall, it is working correctly, right? So our self-managed RDS is working correctly with our database, right? So in that case, what we can do right now we can go ahead and use this specific token from here, copy this token, and click on the user service and put that specific token here. And let's go ahead and click on the create cart. Here, we can just create this card from here by send this one. Yeah, can you see it is created, right? Our card is created. Right now it is calling from here, right? And the time is like for 4.03 seconds. So we can optimize these things by adding our caching mechanism as well as, right? While we are going to introduce our SQS, then definitely it will be reduced the calling time, right? Second time, if I'm gonna add one more, then the quantity has to be like 3, right? 3. Now again, suppose 3, now 3 to 6. Yeah, cool. It is working, right? All right, so now our self-managed RDS is working correctly. Let's try to use the managed RDS as well as, right? So go to this application, user service, right? Here, simply we are going to replace this one. Let's copy this one and keep it just for a safer side, all right? So let's try to copy this one and put it here, right? And let's try to deploy again. So right now it is working perfect. So right now it is deployed again, right? Let's go ahead and try to call it the sign-in URL, login URL, right? Because we have already that specific user. So click here. Right, so it seems like something is going wrong with our server, right? So let's try to investigate. Let's go to our AWS portal right here again and go to our CloudWatch and click on the log groups. And you can see this log groups is been created right here. If you click right here, then you can see this is the latest log. And you can see we have error that is called timeout error. So just for your information, like why exactly this timeout things are happening, it's because of like while your Lambda function or something is to try to call some service and that specific service is not responding or that service is not available. In that case, it is always trying to execute the maximum time of like whatever the time we have assigned for that specific Lambda. Let's try to do that. And if it is not be able to get any response at that time, it is giving error. So certainly it seems like it's something which is related to database, right? So let's go to our RDS. Here, this is our user service, the database, right? And if you click on the security group, right? This is our security group we have created. And go to the select security group and click on edit inbound rule. So can you see, this is my current IP address, right? So right now, that's why actually it is able to execute from here and from our local application also. But our Lambda it's hosted on AWS. It is randomly picking up some IP address from there by API gateway. That's why it is not be able to reach to this database. So what I need to do, I'm gonna delete this one from here and click on the anywhere IPv4, right? And then save the rule, right? Now let's try to call once again from our application from here. Yeah, this time can you see the user ID doesn't exist because this is we have created from somewhere else. If I'm gonna remove this one, it should have to give out the correct response. Cool. Now you can see this working, right? That is the same issue. So always to keep in mind while you are getting some kind of issue, go to the CloudWatch and try to understand the log, and you can get a clear understanding of what exactly is going on right there. It's working. Let's copy this specific token from here, copy, and try to assign it right there, right? Save, and let's try to create our card there. The same user ID I'm gonna use, same product ID. Now you can see we have quantity 3, then just add one more. It should have to be 4 right now. Yeah, 4, correct. So it's working correctly with the bot, the managed and the self-managed database, right? So don't forget to delete the managed database from there, all right? Because it will going to, unless you are spinning up this server or this specific RDS instance, it's gonna cost you a little bit money if you're already running over the pre-tier time. Then what I'm gonna do in my case, I'm gonna delete this one. Here, click this database and click on action. Try to delete this one, right? So what I'm gonna do, I will retain. It's not required exactly. Create the final snapshot. That is also not required, but just to try to create this one in case if it is needed, right? Delete me. Right now, click on delete. So as soon as it is deleted, then it will not spin your billing server, all right? So, and now at any point, we can go ahead and in EC2 section, all right? And that specific server is running, right? This one. So this one, we can just keep a pause while exactly it is needed. We can just spin it up from there. While you are spinning up again, then make sure like it's that specific public IPv4 DNS, you need to copy it from here, because every time you are going to reboot this instance, the public IPv4 DNS and IP address is going to be changed, right? So that's all for today. I hope you have enjoyed this video tutorial. In the next episode, we are going to work on fully the card section in order to accomplish the remaining part of the card, delete, edit, and all those things. And then we can move forward to the integration of the payment gateway, and finally we can create the order, right? Thank you very much, and I would love to see you in upcoming episodes.